All right, Ian, you're up.
All right. Hello, my name is Ian Hale. I'm going to be doing my claim, or my claim is that violent TV can lead to violence in children. It's pretty commonly known that a lot of U.S. citizens watch TV regularly, and the content on TV ranges from anywhere between family-friendly and explicit and only meant for adult viewers. Unfortunately, the restrictions on what can be watched by who are very lenient, and it's easy for kids to watch things that is not intended for them. And this can have some negative impacts on them that can lead to some violent behavior. I'm going to be backing that up with three main things. The first will be the overall impact that TV has on a child's life. The second will be the violence that kids are exposed to, and the third will be the psychological effects that TV has on kids. Back to the first one, the overall impact that TV has on a kid's life. These studies were done by the Nielsen Company, which is the leading global information and measurement company. So they're a reputable source. They found that kids aged 2 years old to 5 years old spend an average of 32 hours watching television per week, and that kids aged 6 through 11 spend 28 hours a week watching TV. They also found out that 71% of kids aged 8 through 18 have a TV in their bedroom, which can lead to an extra hour and a half of watching TV. So kids watch a lot of television. The second point I'm going to make is the amount of violence that kids are exposed to. I'm not going to get into the specific shows or incidences. These are going to be pretty general. These studies were done by Dr. Edward J. Fetterman, who has 25 years of clinical psychology experience. He found that kids see about 200,000 violent acts on TV by the time they reach age 18, and 16,000 murders on TV by the time they reach age 18. He also found that 2/3 of the programming that is on TV contains violence, and that includes cartoons and kids shows. And even if it's not glorifying the act of violence, or if it has a positive message like good beats evil, it's still showing that violence is acceptable. And it's, the last thing I'm going to bring up is the psychological effects that TV can have on kids. These studies were done at the University of Michigan. They found that kids ages 8 and under cannot tell the difference between fantasy and reality. And kids tend to mimic things that they think are cool, which can be dangerous if they think that, or if that thing that they're watching is violent. And that can lead to them imitating some violent acts. They also found that when kids are subjected to repetitive violence on TV, it can lead to them being less sensitive to the victim of the violent act. So they're accepting violence as being okay. Overall, TV plays a massive role in a child's life, and parents should consider that when thinking about what they do and don't want their kids to be watching on TV, because the ignorance of that can lead to some violent behavior from their kids. That's all.
Pretty.
I grew up watching like South Park.
All right, Ian, you start with the proposition, and I think it might be a better idea to start with your background information and lead to the proposition, because by the time you get to the body of the speech, you know, the proposition, it's still in the background, but it seems to me like that would be the forceful point of beginning your argument. So I would reverse the way you presented those at the beginning. You did list your secondary points, so you had a preview of what's coming up. The secondary points, though, are not really written as declarative sentences. They are just signposts of information as opposed to inferences that you want us to follow. And so if you're going to ask us to make an inference, you want a declarative sentence, and arguments are about making those kinds of inferences. So I think that's something that you want to do on the secondary claims. You did do a good job signposting those points when you got to them, so that I thought was helpful. So it's pretty well organized. There's excellent information about the amount of violence that the kids are exposed to and how much television the kids watch. The link to their behavior is a little bit thinner. The closest that you get on that third point is this general information that says that they are more likely to accept violence. And I don't know if that, acceptance of violence means that they see that as a legitimate tool. And what's the harm in them seeing that as a legitimate tool, for instance, in the right context? Maybe there is some argument that says that they see it as a legitimate tool in all contexts, and that's inappropriate. You mentioned that those 8-year-olds, and under can't distinguish between reality and fantasy. Then, given the amount of television that those kids see and the amount of violence that's going on there, and the fact that those kids can't see a difference between reality and fantasy, then the question is, what illustrations or examples do you have of kids acting on the basis of what they've seen at those young ages? And I think maybe an example of some kid who's seen too many Tom and Jerry cartoons hitting his little brother on the head with a hammer, maybe something like that to illustrate the point. You did a nice job, like I said, qualifying the evidence that you had. I just think that you need some stronger information that makes that link on the third point. You had a little bit more time, so there was plenty of time to add information to that and thicken up the argument and make it a little bit more convincing.
Literally right on time.
Yeah.
I got more fluent at it, and I kind of took some time.
Well, and I was going to say, the pacing of the presentation, I think, is pretty effective. You're moving along at the right speed for listeners. It's easy to follow what you're talking about and keep track of the evidence as you're presenting it. So I think you got that right, but I just think there needs to be a little bit more content, and I guess that's just one of those things that comes with practice.